this is Jorn from Vreid, and you're listening to the Dan Chan Show on Hard Rock Hell Radio.
Hey Jorn, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm very good, thanks for asking. How's everything been over the last year up in Norway?
It's been, well, like everyone else, we're locked down in periods. We had good times, like summer last year, really good. And now, these days, it's starting to open up again. But other than that, I guess we're all in the same boat, pretty much.
Exactly. So, I mean, let's get on to it. I mean, Vreid have just released a 9th studio album, Wild Northwest. It's a great album. How's the response been now it's been a few weeks old?
Amazing. It's been over the moon for all the feedback from radio and local television and everything, and of course the foreign media, Europe, US, South America. So it's been pretty much crazy.
Yes.
The most attention we ever got from any release. So I guess something right has been done this time, I guess.
Absolutely. And I understand that you didn't set out to write a concept album this time. You just let the writing evolve naturally, and that's what just happened. Am I right?
Yeah, that's correct. We started the process writing and just the 9th album, but then this crazy idea of this movie just evolved during the summer, and then it turned into a concept album in the end. So quite an exciting journey, I guess.
Yeah, and in your opinion, how does this album differ from 2018's Life Hunger? Was the writing process the same?
The writing process of the songs were pretty much the same. We do pretty much the same thing every time. Jarle writes the riffs and got the stories in his head. Me and him team up in the studio for pre-productions.
Yeah.
And the songs pretty much evolve in like that this time as well. But different from last album, this album we had a lot of rearranging as the movie just fell into place, and the story of the character in the movie, and then we have to rearrange some of the songs, some of the parts, and rearrange pretty much 3 or 4 songs were rearranged during really late October, November. So
really?
Quite hectic, but still. The writing itself was pretty much the same.
Yeah. Now, obviously, you've talked about the movie. Now, I've not managed to see it myself yet, although it's on my radar. You've turned this concept into the movie, and what was that?
Yeah.
Was that a collective band choice, or did someone come up with the idea? Because it's very ambitious.
It's very ambitious, yeah. I guess it's Jarle's idea, pretty much. He always talked about doing more than just music videos. But when we did the live stream last summer in Sogndal, we hooked up with this producer, Håvard Nesbø, who's kind of mad, like he's willing to do anything, working 24 hours. And we saw this potential. There was no shows coming up. We had plenty of time. We could manage the time however we want, but we set a really strict date for the release.
Yeah.
So we just had to do this and be finished with all music and the movie in December, pretty much. So when Jarle came up with the idea, everyone was just on immediately, and then we started writing storylines for the character and for the movie, parallel to finishing the songs in the album. So it was really hectic.
Was that easy to do?
Not easy at all. It was a period in October when I thought that this will never be finished within the time we set.
Really?
But still, not easy, but it's really exciting to go do acting and doing the music videos and the story of the movie, knowing that the songs are like this and that, and this is this song, now we do this. So you have all the album was pretty much finished when we did the main recording. So that helped out, I guess.
And what was what's the story based on? Because I believe it's loosely based on founder and bass player Val's life, right?
It's some reality and some fiction, of course. It's this main character who has a settled life in the mountains in Norway, and then he decides to go out and explore the world. Ends up in meeting the cold, dark, and harsh world outside, and then get transported back to Norway, pretty much, for the extra attention at this mental hospital. It's pretty much the fate of the Norwegian, some of the Norwegian war sailors, from the Second World War. They went out, came back, and they got treated with these methods you never imagine, and then made their life much worse than when they actually came back. Pretty much in that storyline, with a lot of fiction on top and some some Twin Peaks reference, of course.
Yeah,
David Lynch and stuff. So.
Well, you just mentioned it because the old abandoned mental hospital that you use is very cool, atmospheric. That must have been quite an experience. And the Spikes of God video is very chilling. What was it like being in that place?
Really, really scary, but not scary in that moment. That sense that you felt like go around and worry and stuff. But you heard a lot of stories. We grew up with this mental hospital placed like 500 meters up on the hillside, overwatching the fjord. Really dark and gloomy, and it's been abandoned now for 20 years, so it's kind of dangerous to be there. So we have to like sign papers that you do it on our own responsibility. But we got the keys, and we had the 2 or 3 days up there. Do whatever you want, use whatever room you want. So, but it was crazy. It was fantastic, and I think that's the essence of the movie. And the story itself could not be done in such a way if we didn't have the access to that building again.
Yeah, absolutely. And from the footage I've seen throughout some of your videos and some of the online footage as well, it's beautifully filmed. It was all done on your own, wasn't it? It was help of family and friends. It's very DIY.
All is DIY, yeah. So everything is done. Håvard, the producer, he has been doing all kinds of local stuff. He's sitting on like hundreds of hours of nature photos and drone videos from our region. Also, he's been doing some professional movies as well, like being in there in the productions, Norwegian movies pretty much, but also like Mission Impossible, he's been involved. Wow. So he's kind of experienced in that sense, but not doing music videos. But he's really into the music. He's an old friend of ours. So it was him, and he had a friend doing the camera works as well, and the rest is family, pretty much, all acting and all. I can
see you in some kind of like amateur dramatics group with your acting skills. Was it fun? Is that the first time you've done anything like that?
Yeah, it's the first time we've done music videos, like when everyone take their gear and put on in the mountains and pretend to be evil, right?
Yeah.
But this is kind of different when they put on. I have this sequence in one when I had to put on some weird clothing, and it was not arranged beforehand. He just had the task, bring something weird and play some weird part. And I decided to wear the red dress of my ex-girlfriend with some red lipstick and doing like complete mental. And my kids were not too happy about that. It's going to be online forever, Dad. And I said, well, it's art, so... So it's kind of like an amateur theater stuff, but still it's kind of funny to explore new stuff, do other things, not only bring their instruments and stuff. So I thought it was really cool. We had a good time.
Where can we see the film?
The film is it was released in some packages with the LP and the DVD. Yeah. It's probably going to be printed like an old DVD. We haven't decided yet. Season of Mist is on that, but we have plans on doing stuff like releasing it online for rent or buy or something. So it will be available again soon online, I hope, if everything works out. Yeah.
That'd be cool. So I believe the album, back to the music, I believe the album was recorded last year. What was it like recording during the pandemic? Was there anything different that was noticeably different from like previous recordings?
It was pretty similar, actually, because we managed to hit the recording in the period when it was kind of normal here in Oslo. Everything was opened. We even did a show in Oslo, although it was restricted audience and stuff in August. But we did the recordings then in late summer, early spring. So we just like went in the studio, and then we were there in like just the band and the guy in the studio, Anders, and we just hung out for 3 or 4 days there, and then we had pretty much all the guitars and the drums were done, and the vocals were done in the studio, and then the last thing was done like in Jarle's home studio. So it was not too different from the other recordings, actually. Yeah. We're kind of lucky with the timing of the recording. If it would have been January or March, that wouldn't have been possible for all the restrictions now. We've been pretty locked down since October here. So. Yeah.
And you're on the album, you're revisiting some old demo tracks. One of the standout tracks on the album for me is Into the Mountains. It's almost 20 years old, and this is a track that Valthor wrote. It's a song of two halves. It must be a very special track for you.
Yeah, it is a special track. One of my favorites as well. That's, of course, because of the story. Jarle sent me a video late summer last year, telling me that he'd been scanning through some old hard disks and he found this recordings from 2002 or 2001. I don't know. Yeah. It's in between the 1184 and Likferd Vindir recordings. So when they played them, I immediately recognized the synthesizer sounds because it was so similar to the ones that Teddy used back in the days. So, and I asked, "What is this? Is this some unreleased stuff?" And he said, "Yeah, I found this," and he just played through. So I went out in the studio to him, just a 20-minute drive, and we played through all these recordings with the bass and that, I don't know, drum and bass part, the last part of the song was also kind of recorded, but we did rearrange that because he had been putting on some, I don't know, sounded like some Cuban beach party or something, really weird stuff. So and he was really into that drum and bass and electronic music back in the day. So, and we, of course, you can hear that on the 1184 album, Journey to the End. So kind of similar, and Jarle rewrote and he rearranged, and the song turned out to be like back in the Winder days, and that was pretty much the intention. If we're going to use it, we have to make it sound like it would be in a Winder recording. Absolutely. That's the intention of it. Yeah. I
mean, and for those that don't know the history, you were in the original Winder lineup, but the band came to a tragic end when frontman Valfar died in a tragic incident, dying of hypothermia in a snowstorm at the age of 25. I mean, how was that to deal with in such a tragedy, and especially after the band had done so much?
It's hard because it was not just the band member; he's our closest neighbor and best friend as well. So, kind of, we grew up together. It was Terje and Valfar and his brother, and Jarle and me. So we were kind of a four-piece. Growing up there, just houses were just meters apart, and we just hung out every day. And then we started playing music, and we formed the bands. And eventually forming Winder as a five-piece band. And then all this tragedy struck in 2004, and everything was just like ripped away. We had to both plan our future musically by doing the band, which is pretty much the easy part. And then suddenly, of course, then manage with the loss of our best friend on the so it's kind of a tough period. We had lots of private tragedies going on in period of time. We had car crashes and hospitals and dads and uncles and brothers dying as well. So really a tough time, but we managed to get through it. And now and these days we just look back and all the fun we had and all the magic we created on those albums. Really proud of that period.
And was it clear that you would start a new band and not continue with Winder?
Yeah, the continuing of Winder was totally off the table at once. It was at the same time it was not an option to stop playing music. So we had to start recording, start rehearsing, and do our stuff. We had the first album is pretty much colored by the fact that we didn't want to sound like Winder, so we stripped away pretty much all the keyboards, and it's much more of a rock and roll album than the previous Winder albums. I get some fans were kind of disappointed it didn't sound like the Likferd album, but that was our intention as well. We were angry and just frustrated, I guess. No, the intention was just to go out, play live. We didn't manage to play a lot of live shows with Winder, so that was the plan. Just go out, play live shows, tour, record albums, and then see what the future brings. And here we are 20 years later. So
you just mentioned rock and roll. For those that don't know the band, explain the black and roll thing, because I mean it's obvious, but where did the description come from?
It came from the first album because and I'm not sure who came up with this black and roll tag on our music, but I think the first two albums at least is kind of fitting the description. It was inspired by a lot of Norwegian black metal, of course, but lots of rock and roll elements like Motorhead and old Iron Maiden and stuff. Yeah. So, but I guess since the Ikrig album, the third album, we involved and we took back some of our heritage, some of the folk tunes, some of the keyboards, and slowly we grew older as well. So. And we're kind of proud of what we did earlier. So Vreid in 2018 or 20 or 21 sound much more like what Winder would have sounded like, I think, than the first couple of Vreid albums. We kind of evolved and grew older. So that's the short story.
Another thing, just explain Sognametal for those that don't know. That's where you're from, isn't it?
Yeah, Sogn is the region that's where Sogndal is the biggest, let's call this village because it's not a city, it's not a town actually, it's too small. So But when Terje, he wanted to distance himself from the negative publicity of the Norwegian black metal scene. They got a lot of, in the mid-90s, Norwegian black metal was kind of, it was church burnings and killings and prisons and stuff. So, and he wanted to distance himself from that, and he just said, I want to call my music Sognametal because I'm not going to call myself black metal. It's not a black metal band. I don't write satanic lyrics. This is all about local history. So that was the original intention of putting that label on the music. But today, it's I think it's even more than the branding from the place. It's kind of, we always did what we want. We don't care what people think or what they say. We just evolve, do music, release whatever you have. Like if an album has 8 songs in 8 different genres, well, just go on and do it. Yeah. Don't behave, don't care about whatever anyone else says. And the intention of Sognametal is much in that direction as well. Of course, the region is, of course, the essence still, but...
Of course. I mean, you just touched upon it, the whole black metal scene. How important to Norwegian history is the black metal scene, and when did you first become aware of it? I'm not sure about your age.
Well, we were aware of that. I'm turning 44. I'm born in 77. So
we're the same age. Kind of, we're the same age. I remember the Kerrang! For me, it was like mid-90s when Varg Vikernes is on the front cover, and this is like this whole
front cover,
church burnings going on. It's like, what's going on?
and things were happening. I still remember the news. I read the papers. We knew the bands. But I think there's two sides of it. I think it's essential for the evolvement of Norwegian black metal music, what happened. Also the non-musical stuff, because without the church burnings and the other stuff going on, I don't think Kerrang! Would ever put up Varg Vikernes on the front cover. This was the shocking stories going on back then. So I guess that got the attention of the Norwegian music scene, and all PR is good PR, I guess, in that sense. But the bands who came after this first, or let's call it second wave of black metal, have all 100% focus on the music. But then the brand Norwegian black metal had been like secured and born in the 90s. And then, you don't see many bands shocking from Norway anymore. Some bands may do, but I think everyone like Emperor and Slave, whatever, all the old giants is kind of like sounding clean, and they're not doing. They're family guys, all of them, and so it's another climate. But I think we wouldn't have been here today if it wasn't for the happenings in the early 90s. Although, I think it's kind of essential.
And you've got a couple of wooden churches up near you, haven't you? That probably survived.
A lot of them. there were people guarding those churches. They put up cameras, and there was police and stuff. Just really. During the summer period, at least. So it's kind of, you have local papers writing about this extra guards at the churches. I think we have 6 or 7 of them, like old, and the oldest one is 1,000 years old. So it's kind of, but in my personal view, that's going around burning churches is like quite the opposite of what you. And if you go and visit them, I strongly recommend if you're in those parts. Absolutely. It's really beautiful buildings, and we even got to use one of them in the music in the movie.
Yeah, really.
Last song in the movie, we talked with the local church, and we got to borrow the Kaupanger State Church, and we just filmed half of that song inside the church with all the. It's really great. So.
I hope they weren't nervous.
They were not nervous, no. I think it turned out well, and they were nice people. Cool. So
Do you get a chance to check any new music out? Any bands in Norway? Anything that's worth checking out?
Well, I get asked that a lot. I think it's there's not a lot of band coming up. I think it's kind of worrying. I guess there's not too many younger bands coming up. There's some new formations going on with, let's call them grown-ups, not these 20 years old. The last 2 ones I've been checking out is, of course, the new band of the guys from Spiral Architect, Terra Odium, that prog metal band from with Steve DiGiorgio on bass. Really cool songs out now, 2 songs. And also the Norwegian band called Ilt, E-L-L-T, really cool. I'm really fond of those. They released 3 songs, and they're going to be a full release on indie during the summer, I guess. really a band to check out.
Cool, we'll do. So on to drumming. I was speaking to Paul from Cannibal Corpse recently, and he was saying how much harder it is with age to keep up with the speeds that this genre demands. How do you keep yourself on point all the time? Is it fitness for you? What is it?
It's pretty much fitness. And I agree with Paul. It's getting harder as we're growing older. It is. You can't deny that. But for me, it's kind of a stamina thing. Doing a lot of bicycling when it's not winter. I do the bicycling and the training and doing long walks, actually, not run, because I have problems with my back, so I can't run too much. So I have to walk, but put on music and just walk and keep in shape in that form. And of course, the drumming, I have a Roland kit in my living room, so I get to rehearse a couple of times a week. But it's in periods as well. And now during the Corona, it's been you think you should be doing all the rehearsals 5 times a week, but then you tend to do other stuff. So let's now just focus on getting in shape until summer at first.
Who are your drumming influences?
Well, I grew up with the early Metallica albums. Lars Ulrich, of course, the first 4 albums, really classics in my opinion. But later on, I think both Igor Cavalera and of course you have to mention Gene Hoglan, my biggest idol maybe. I got to meet him a couple of times, 2 or 3 times. Really a cool guy. So I think I put him on top. And then of course you have all the classics. You can't forget Neil Peart and John Bonham and stuff. Of course. The solid rock drummers.
So what's the touring plans for the band as it stands?
It's hard to plan because of the pandemic. We don't know how long it would take until we can tour. We're working on Norwegian shows, and we're working on European tours, but the European shows is 2022. But we hope to be able to announce some in not such a long time, maybe a month or something. Then we have more concrete plans.
And with it being a concept album, do you think you'd play the album in its entirety on tour?
We haven't discussed that actually, but there was this question from the Norwegian, I think it was Norway, Metal Hammer Norway, who asked the same question. It would be cool. It would be cool to time it.
46 minutes, you could throw a couple of classics in as well. It's perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect. And also, if we could use the backdrop with the movie as well, just to synchronize it, it would be really cool.
There you go.
So it's possible, we haven't thought about it, but it would definitely be discussed, and I think the chances of doing it is much bigger than not. So it's a golden opportunity, I guess.
Yeah. And lastly, tell me about your new beer, because you've just launched a beer last year. What does it taste like? And do you think it's important for bands to be thinking outside the box with merch and branding, etc.?
Definitely think so. I think we have to think outside the box. We did the beer mainly because, all bands, we're not the first band. Many bands have done it, but we have Stian, who's the guitar player. He has been brewing now for 7, 8 years. That's cool. Become really good.
Yeah.
And we got this opportunity. We said, why don't we just brew it at a local brewery? So he actually took the recipe into their factory and he brewed it on their equipment. So that's how it's. So it's not just a beer with our name on it. It's our beer.
Yeah.
We did two types last summer. The ordinary beer, like Pilsner beer, German light beer, and we did a Weiss beer as well, just to have 2 types. So and now we have this new coming out now in these days, and it's now available in 30, 40 stores in Norway.
Awesome.
It's an IPL, it's an India Pale Lager. So, and that's the album beer with where the bottle is with the new album on front. So. Cool.
I think
now we have 3. So,
I think with all the bands doing whiskies and wines and beers, there should be a drinks festival just for bands.
Yeah, I think so. That's a great thing. But I think think outside the box. We had this issue with the story with we had a sponsorship for the local football team as well. So and then we got the logo on their shirt. Cool. So it's kind of think outside the box, do other stuff. It's cool. Awesome. If you don't overdo it, that's the most important. You can't just start selling chairs and sofas and televisions and stuff. So that's now we have a movie, we have music, and we have beer. So that's brilliant. We don't need anything else. We have the most essentials.
Exactly. Well, Jorn, thanks so much for joining me on the show. It's very much appreciated. Good luck with the album and the festivals, tours that will follow.
Yeah, thanks.